All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're completely rethinking what the word progress actually means. You know, it's a word we throw around all the time, but when you really stop and look at the data, true development is about so much more than just money in the bank. We're going to unpack exactly how we measure success, why our traditional yardsticks might actually be failing us, and what it genuinely takes to move forward without, well, sacrificing our future.
We've got a fascinating journey ahead today. We'll start by asking, 1. What is development? 2. Beyond just income. 3. Comparing states and nations. 4. Measuring human development. And finally, 5. Sustaining our future.
So, Section 1. What is development? Understanding personal aspirations. Because to understand how a whole country develops, we really have to start right at the individual level.
I want you to think about this for a second. Would your definition of a perfect future match your neighbor's? Or what about someone living a completely different life on the other side of the country? For some people, progress might mean finally buying a car, but for others, it might just mean the opportunity to pull a rickshaw they actually own. Our personal circumstances totally dictate our definition of a better life. And this brilliantly illustrates our first major tension. On one hand, you have a landless rural laborer. To them, development means more days of work and better wages. Simple, right? But then on the other hand, you have a prosperous farmer. Their goal is high family income, which means they want high crop prices and, here's the kicker, cheap labor. So two people can have entirely conflicting goals. What's progress for the farmer actively hurts the laborer. It's the exact same thing with industrialists who might want massive dams built for electricity, but that displaces local tribes who just want small check dams to irrigate their own land. Development for one person can literally be destructive for another.
Which brings us to Section 2, beyond just income and the flaws of averages. Because if individuals have such conflicting goals, how in the world do we measure a whole country's progress?
For a long time, the go-to answer has been per capita income. Basically, you take the total income of a country and divide it by its total population. The World Bank actually uses this exact metric in its World Development Reports to put countries into high-income or low-income buckets. It's the most common way to measure success globally, mostly because we just naturally assume more income means more of the things humans need to survive and thrive. But, as we're about to see, averages can hide some massive, incredibly uncomfortable realities.
Imagine two fictional countries, A and B. Both have exactly 5 citizens. Now, both of these countries share the exact same average income of 10,000 rupees. On paper, using the World Bank's logic, they're financial twins, equally developed. But look a little closer at how that money is actually distributed. Country B has extreme inequality. 4 citizens are practically destitute, making just 500 rupees, while one person is hoarding almost all the wealth, pulling in 48,000. Country A, though, much more equitable. Everyone makes right around 10,000. If you had to enter a blind lottery to be a citizen in one of these places, you'd absolutely pick Country A, wouldn't you? So while averages are mathematically useful, they can totally mask how wealth is actually experienced on the ground.
Let's move to Section 3. Comparing states and nations, and the money can't buy motif. We're going to look at a real-world example right here in India to see exactly why income alone is such a flawed measure.
Looking at data from 2023 to 2024, let's compare the per capita income of Haryana, Kerala, and Bihar. Haryana is sitting at the top, boasting an impressive 325,759 rupees. Kerala is behind them, and Bihar is at the bottom, with just over 60,000. Now, if money is our only guide, Haryana looks like the undisputed champion of development here. Pure economic logic says it should absolutely be the best place to live, right?
Well, here's the record scratch moment. This is the infant mortality rate. That's the number of children out of 1,000 who sadly don't survive to their first birthday. In Kerala, that number is 6. In the much richer state of Haryana, it's 28. Think about that for a second. Despite having way less average income, Kerala is almost 3 times better at keeping its infants alive than Haryana. It really forces us to ask a tough, very human question. How can the average person in Haryana have more money in their pocket but lag so far behind in something as fundamental as the child's survival?
The reason for this gap is actually pretty simple. Money in your pocket cannot buy essential public facilities. You individually can't buy a pollution-free environment no matter how much cash you have. Your personal wealth won't guarantee unadulterated medicines at the local pharmacy, and it certainly won't protect you from an infectious disease outbreak unless your whole community takes preventative steps. These things require collective, societal investment. It turns out it's much cheaper and way more effective to provide things like government schools and robust public healthcare collectively rather than having every single person try to buy them on their own. Kerala excels because it prioritizes these basic health and educational facilities for everybody.
This leads us perfectly into Section 4, Measuring Human Development, a more holistic index. Because income is clearly failing us as a standalone measure, we desperately need a better yardstick.
We really have to shift our perspective here. While the World Bank focuses purely on your wallet using per capita income, the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, takes a completely different approach with their Human Development Report. They look at your actual quality of life. They combine educational levels, health status like life expectancy, alongside per capita income to create the Human Development Index, or HDI. By putting the word human right there in front of development, it makes it crystal clear. What matters most isn't just the size of the economy, it's what's actually happening to the citizens.
In looking at this data from the 2025 Human Development Report, the results are pretty wild. Isn't it surprising that a much smaller neighbor like Sri Lanka outranks India in every single category here? Sri Lanka ranks 89th globally compared to India's 130th. Or look at Bangladesh and Nepal. Both have significantly lower per capita incomes than India, but they actually boast a higher or nearly equal life expectancy. India's life expectancy is 72, while Bangladesh is sitting at 74.7. It's the perfect proof that national wealth absolutely does not automatically equal longer, healthier lives.
Okay, time for our final zoom out. Section 5, Sustaining Our Future, the Ultimate Development Challenge. Because measuring today's development means absolutely nothing if it destroys tomorrow's potential.
Even our renewable resources are in serious trouble right now. Take the groundwater threat in India. Recent evidence shows about 300 districts have seen their water levels drop by over 4 meters in just the last 20 years. Nearly a third of the entire country is overusing its groundwater reserves. If we don't check this, in 25 years, 60% of the country will be actively draining their reserves. And the truly alarming, kinda ironic part, this is happening mostly in agriculturally prosperous regions, the exact places we usually call developed. They are literally draining their future underground just to keep up today's economic output.
When we look at non-renewable resources, the data gets even more sobering. Based on 2017 reserves and current extraction rates, global reserves of crude oil are projected to last only another 50 years. Let that sink in. 50 years is a blink of an eye. Countries like India that depend heavily on importing oil are going to face massive burdens as prices inevitably skyrocket. Meanwhile, countries without their own reserves might resort to aggressive economic or military power just to secure oil. The way we currently define and practice development, it's fundamentally unsustainable.
Which brings us to this incredibly profound thought. We have not inherited the world from our forefathers, we have borrowed it from our children. This totally reframes everything we've talked about in this explainer. Environmental degradation doesn't care about national borders. Our futures are globally tied together. If our current model of progress leaves the next generation with drained aquifers, an exhausted planet, and terrible inequality, well then true development hasn't happened at all. It has to be sustainable, or it simply isn't progress.
So, I want to leave you with this to ponder long after this explainer ends. We started off by asking what development means to you personally, and we've seen how messy it gets when you scale that up to a national or global level. Based on the undeniable realities we've explored today, the hidden inequalities, the things money just can't buy, and the terrifying limits of our planet, what should we really be striving for? How do you define true, sustainable progress for your community? Thanks for exploring this with me today. Keep asking those tough questions.